Hi, today I'm going to walk you through the updated startup procedure, startup cycle for the Hans Model 2 and 2R. This update occurred on version 2.15J, which is currently on the OTA server and current production devices being shipped out. A couple minor changes that occurred on the startup cycle is stage 4 and stage 5 of the startup cycle. There's a couple tweaks to it to help make sure we purge out any additional air out of the system, but it also helps us work out the fines out of the stage 4 calcite filter better instead of doing the extended flush after the system's been ran through the startup cycle. So today I'm going to walk you through each step and kind of talk about the changes that occurred with it. So right now our system's already plumbed in, installed, ready to go. Right now we're on the control screen. We have our inlet and outlet valves closed right now. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn on the startup cycle, which the system goes into kind of a static mode, waiting for inlet pressure to exceed 20 psi before it starts that. Then we're going to slowly open our inlet valve, which is going to be the farthest right valve here. We're going to crack that open, and we're going to keep an eye on the pressures in the top left-hand side of the screen. Typically what I do is I open the inlet valve about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch every 5 to 10 psi, just to make sure we slowly work up the pressure in the system so we don't hammer it. We're above 10, I'm going to crack it open a little bit more. We just got over 20 psi, so I'm going to slowly open it the rest of the way to give it full beat pressure. So right now we're wide open, so we're going to be flushing everything down the drain. What it does is it's the same 2-minute flush with just all the drain valves wide open right now. Everything's getting dumped down the drain currently. So we'll let this run through its cycle. It does have a timer. It will count down every minute that you have left, and it'll automatically switch to stage 2 once this is done. Stage 2 will run the pump at 1500 RPM, still keeping all 4 drain valves wide open, discharging everything down the drain. These 2 steps are primarily there to basically work out any of the fines that may exist in the carbon filter, but also helping work out any air pockets out of those as well, so we don't send any giant air gulps of air to the pump into the membranes when the system's starting up. This is a good point where you can double check any of the plumbing you may have installed. Right now we're at about just under 8 gallons a minute right now, flushing at 40 psi, so you can check all your plumbing, your inlet and fittings, your drain fitting, and make sure you don't have any leaks or drips out of any of those locations. You can also keep an eye with the side panels removed off the side of the machine and just visually check any of the fittings on the system, make sure there aren't any leaks anywhere as well. So once it switches over to stage 2, it will run that 1500 RPM flush at a little bit higher pressure going to the membranes. That will run for 1 minute. So just switched over to stage 2 automatically. It's at 1500 RPM. You'll see a little bit higher pressure on the pump outlet, that's sending pressure to the membranes and slowly filling the tank. So right now we're at about 12 psi in the tank. Once this runs for 1 minute, it's going to switch to stage 3 automatically, which will run the pump at 2800 RPM and fill the tank the rest of the way to 65 psi. It's only going to run for a couple minutes, or a couple seconds, until it's filled to 65, and it's going to sit static and give you a prompt on the screen to show you here in a moment. Also, these instructions and the step-by-step process of the startup cycle is in the installation manual on page 22. It walks you through each step as well. So we're in stage 3. It's going to fill the tank to 65 psi, so it'll run up to 2800 RPM until the outlet pressure reaches 65. Once it shuts off, it's going to sit static at about 65 to 70 psi when it's done. So the next step is open the outlet valve and then open a cold water tap to 2 to 5 gallons per minute. Once you have those taps opened, you can open your outlet valve to obviously to the unit and start feeding those faucets. Usually it's about 2 to 3 faucets. You'll achieve just over 2 gallons a minute, depending on the size of the faucet and everything. But it's pretty important to stick between 2 and 5 gallons a minute. What the unit will do in stage 4, it basically will take the unit through various fill and drain cycles automatically for you while you have that outlet draw. It's basically going to work out the fines out of the calcite filter, but also make sure we rinse out the sanitization liquid that you would have poured in the permeate line for a fresh install if you're at a fresh install, not a filter change. So what we're going to do is we're going to open our outlet valve, hit OK on the screen, and you can see your outlet flow on the top right over here. You want to get between 2 and 5 gallons a minute. So we got about 3.2 gallons a minute right now, so it's going to take it through various tank fill and flushes here automatically for you. We'll give you prompt on the screens of what it's doing at each step. It's a 10-step process. It'll take a few minutes to get through here. As you can see, it's basically taking the unit between about 37, 38 PSI up to 65 and taking that through it, that fill and drain cycle. One also good use with this, reason for doing this is working out any of the microfoggles and air pockets out of the membrane and all this, getting them fully cleaned up in operation. This is also a great point where you double check again any of your plumbing to where you see some of the highest flow rates. Check any leaks, check for any leaks or drips out of any of the fittings or any plumbing damage installed. cycles left. Stage 5, it'll prompt you to close the inlet and the outlet isolation valve. It'll have you electrical scan the screen, and what the unit will do will run the unit through a drain cycle, so it's going to drain the rest of it down, everything going down the drain, and then it'll, once that's done, it'll do one final fill on the unit, and then you'll be ready to put it into service. We're about on our last cycle here.
You never kicked it out of here.
All right, so now it's prompting us to close the outlet valve and then close our inlet valve. We're going to hit OK on the screen. It's going to take the unit through a drain cycle. We're going to drain everything down. You'll be able to watch the inlet pressure and the outlet pressures on the top of the screen here and seeing what everything gets down to. The reason for this is going to allow us to take it through one full complete drain and one complete fill as well. Again, it's going to work out any of the air pockets out of the system, help get the membranes fully waterlogged, and then work out any of the fines out of the calcite filter as well. This will also give you a countdown. This will take it down to about 2 PSI. It's going to be a pretty slow flow once you get to the last minute or two because we already started at a low pressure going into this for the drain cycle. But normally on a fully filled tank, it's going to take exactly 5 minutes. So this is the same drain cycle you would see on a unit when you're draining it to service any of the wet components on the unit as well. We have 2 minutes left. We're almost fully drained down here. We got about 3 psi left in the tank, 2 psi in the inlet of the pump, 4 in the outlet of the pump.
Amen.
Hey, so I'm going to send you a list here just real quick. Just can you tell me real quick, you guys have state in stock, like by chance, or is that not something you guys have stock? Looking for 1 inch male by 1 inch, or I'm sorry, 1 inch male by 3/4 inch male and 3/4 inch half inch. Just MFPT.
Few seconds here. It's going to switch over and shut off the drain cycle.
3/4 by half. I'm looking for 4 of the 1 by 3/4 and 2 of the 3/4 by half. No, 304 is one. If it matches the other stainless that we need to get, then we should be fine. Okay, all right. Let me just look real quick.
So now it's directing you to open the inlet and outlet valves, flush the system for up to 20 minutes at 2 to 5 gallons a minute. This is the same process as it was with the previous startup cycle, except we have to go through a fill of the unit. So we're going to slowly open the inlet valve and start feeding the unit water. You'll hear the pump kick on. You can then still leave those same couple faucets or whatever fixtures you had open before on, and then open your outlet valve. We're going to let the system go through a 20-minute flush at 5 gallons a minute. This doesn't have an actual timer on it. You'll have to set a timer on your phone or your watch. Keep an eye on how long you've been running the unit for. Again, this is just going to work out the rest of the air pockets out of the system and work out any of the fines out of the calcite filters, reduce any of the clouding this water at because they're new filters. Once you're done with that, we've got a 20-minute flush. You can shut your fixtures off or close your outlet to shut off the outlet flow. The unit will fill all the way up to its normal 5 psi. Because we did finish our startup cycle, it automatically switched itself to automatic mode, which means it's maintaining 5 psi. It'll fill all the way up to 65 psi, and then it's going to sit static, waiting for outlet pressure or outlet flow or outlet pressure to be reduced or see any flow, and the unit will turn on and operate as normal in automatic mode. Shut down here. Your startup cycle is completely finished. Now you can close those fixtures you had open. You can open your outlet valve if the customer or you want to do any additional testing, running any specific items in the house. You can absolutely do that. Otherwise, you can start cleaning up your site and get ready to start leaving the location. Thank you. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to the tech support line by email or phone. Or again, if you need to reference any of the changes for the startup cycle or see what the steps are, that's on page 22 of the installation manual. Thank you.